Sanford County Sheriff's Office. This call will be recorded and monitored. Your advance pay account balance is $93.21. For customer assistance, billing inquiries, or to block future calls, dial 1-877-650-4249. To hear the cost of this call, press 8. This call is subject to monitoring and recording. Do not use three-way or call waiting features during this call. Thank you for using Global Tel-Link.
You ready?
Hey, Paul, I couldn't hear a word, man.
Yeah, home wave is down in our mod.
Oh, okay.
They gotta get somebody in there to fix it, I guess. So
okay.
We can do it on this on the phone here if you like.
Sure, absolutely. Could you hear me? Just curious.
No, I couldn't.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, let me turn the air conditioning off. It always comes in the background.
Darn, I even put on my favorite T-shirt for you.
My wife was going to come in. We're going to make it a family affair, but I think we got some questions, and we could start there, Paul, if that's okay. And
yeah,
okay.
Go ahead.
All right. What's today's date? So I make sure I get the date in here, babe. Is it August the 27th?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. All right. Today is Thursday, August the 27th. We have Paul Hansen on the line from Santa Rosa County Jail. Paul, you just recently learned in the past few days that you've got to spend 18 months in prison for mailing a letter, basically. And so that puts you at probably another 6 months. We're probably looking at early February before you get out. And if I understand right, probably within some short period of time, yet undetermined, they're going to move you from Santa Rosa County Jail to probably a prison, a federal prison somewhere in Florida. And that hasn't happened yet. But this is our opportunity to get a chance to talk to you and ask questions that come up all the time. There's new people learning about the case, the Kent Hovind case. Just to let you know, he's speaking to presidential candidates that have actually reached out to him, and they want to know like details about the case. So this could get, it could go national news. And Paul, you're obviously a big part of this. And a lot of people say, well, why is Paul in jail? And that seems to be the common question. They don't understand why you would be put in jail for mailing a letter. And it just comes up over and over and over again, because when I tell people that, they put him in jail, they came and put guns to his head with a SWAT team, and they put him in jail for mailing a letter. They just don't understand that. They say, well, this is America, that doesn't make any sense. So maybe if you can elaborate from a bigger picture, like just at a high level, how you got involved, and I know you've done this before, Paul, but home wave is down tonight, so we're not able to use that system. How you got, how you got involved, and why writing this letter they considered such an evil thing and worthy of being put in prison for 18 months, and that the prosecution tried to put you in prison, I think, for 6.3 years.
Yeah, they don't like anybody to come after them on Kent's 2006 case. What I assume this is all about. They probably know that I've got the information, or the people, the 100-some people that I work with, have the information, the ability to take that thing back into court and show that it was a complete fraud. Kent had no legal duty to do anything for the government, and he was framed by his own lawyer. I believe the judge actually was involved in the conspiracy, the prosecutor, and the IRS agent. They conspired to frame him. They put him in jail for 10 years, even though he didn't do anything wrong. He went way out of his way not to do anything wrong. They knew he was They knew that he was a high-profile person. They wanted to make an example of him. They figured he didn't know anybody that could understand the law properly and defend himself. So they attacked him. But I met Kent back in 2000, and I became a trustee of the Creation Science Evangelism Ministry in 2006. And in 2011, the court put an injunction out that we weren't supposed to do anything as trustees to cloud any title. And in 2013, I sent a letter to a title company that was considering selling some of the church properties to cover Kent's fraudulently calculated judgment. And the trustees wanted to notice that have a notice in the record that we were in.
This call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
That we were interested in the property, that we had a legal interest in the property, that we've never had our day in court in relationship to that property. We've never, the trustees have never been summoned to appear in a court to defend our interest in that property. They were just told we don't have an interest in that property. It's complete violation of due process. But what happened is they took that letter and they converted it into a cloud on the title, which it's not. Absolutely not a cloud on the title. It was only a legal notice or a neighborly notice to the insurance company that the trustees were not abandoning the property, that we're eventually going to take it into court. And what they did is they convinced the jury that it clouded the title, even though they had no evidence of the cloud in the title. They convinced the jury that it was a violation of the injunction that was written in 2011, and they asked the jury to find me guilty on a contempt charge of violating that injunction, which can serve up to life in prison.
Wow.
And I got 18 months for that letter that absolutely had no effect on any sale. And we talked about the wisdom of a farm plowboy. If he'd walk up to this situation and start asking questions, he would just simply say, "No harm done, none at all," and would walk away.
Yeah.
And what do? They spent $350,000 on a court action. We asked for a FOIA, Freedom of Information Act. They told us that at the end of the trial, they spent $313,000 on that trial, and then they're going to put me in jail for 18 months. That's another almost $50,000. So it's about $350,000, and maybe more than that they're spending on this letter that had no effect.
Now, Paul, let me interrupt you there, if you don't mind. You said you actually did get a response back from a Freedom of Information Act request?
Yeah, Ernie told me that Kent has it in his possession, yes.
Okay, all right. Oh, very good. Wow. Okay, so, yeah, they spent $350,000 because you mailed this letter, but you didn't cause the government or any other human being any damages, right? There's no victim in the crime that you're spending 18 months in. Is there? Well, let me ask it as a question rather than a statement. Is there any victim in the supposed crime that you committed that you're now spending 18 months in prison for?
No, all the letter did is it noticed them that we had a legal interest in that property for $1 million or more, and that we were going to eventually take it to a court and prove our claim. And they converted it to a cloud on the title, which this document was never filed into the Registry of Deeds or anything like that to create a legal cloud. So there was no cloud. The evidence that there's no cloud is nobody's ever filed a court document to lift a cloud. Every cloud that I've ever been associated with or studied in law, you get a court order to lift it. There is no cloud. None at all.
Yeah, right.
It didn't delay the sale one second. All it did is inspired a lawyer for the title of the company to sit in the witness stand and say a cloud of the title. But when we asked him, how did it cloud the title, he didn't have any evidence of it having any effect. Now, how can you have a cloud on the title that has no effect on nothing?
Yeah.
It wasn't a cloud. The guy lied.
Yeah.
I believe the guy just flat out lied. I think he's a good old boys, wanted favor with the United States prosecutor, and I could tell it when they asked him the question. It appeared to me like he was coached.
Yeah.
Just like, okay, we're going to ask this question, and you say cloud.
Yeah. Now, I guess from my layman's perspective, Paul, even if it did cloud the title, and you broke this, this letter that I've read the letter, Paul, and it appears to me that it said if you do this, you'll be exposed to civil charges, and I think you took it to a lawyer friend of yours who agreed with that position that if you do that, it will be subject to civil charges, not criminal. There's a big difference between civil contempt of court and criminal contempt of court, and yet you've now been put in prison for criminal contempt of court when that's not what the letter said. But even if you did do that, there's a there's a thought process out here, and I've seen it repeated many times, that what you were doing was trying to be honest, right? In other words, there's a piece of property. The ownership of the property is at question. And so you're trying to tell people simply, as a good Christian would, that there's pending litigation on this property, right? And you're trying to be neighborly and to say, hey, anybody who's interested in that needs to be aware that there's pending litigation. And so you're trying to do your Christian duty of being honest, and they've turned it into a crime. So would you agree with this thought process that's out here in the internet, that you've been imprisoned for being honest?
Yeah, I'm in prison for exercising a right that a trustee has in dealing with trust property.
Wow.
Case law out there that says that you have a right to build a case for future litigation. You have a right to that. They're saying I don't have that right. Now, I didn't cloud the title. I just gave notice that we had an interest in that property. We believe we had an interest in that property. That's all that said. It wasn't a cloud. It wasn't a lien. It could have been a lien. We could have sent it to the Register of Deeds of that county and had it filed. It was never filed. It was never made part of public record. It wasn't no different than me walking up to the attorney on the front porch of his house and say, "Hey Joe, we're eventually going to go to court on this and try to convince a jury that property was stolen from the church."
Wow.
With the law.
That's amazing. That's amazing that this judge thinks that action that you did is worth 18 months in prison, and they tried to give you 6.3 years. Absolutely amazing. Let me go back to a statement you made earlier, Paul, about you said the real reason, if we just want to go through all just all the stuff and just get down to the brass tacks, the real reason is they don't want anybody with any legal knowledge poking around this 2006 case for Kent Hovind that put an innocent man in prison for 9 years, that a presidential candidates, more than one, my understanding is Ted Cruz, Ben Carson, Donald Trump, their campaigns have reached out to Kent Hovind, and he's out on the outside now, Paul, and you don't have visibility to it, but he's making at least 1 or 2 videos every few days, and it's getting tens of thousands of hits. Some of his videos have 20, 30, 40,000 hits. So his popularity, he's just as popular now, and I think he's even going to become more so, because I think he's a bold warrior of God as far as preaching creationism. But I guess the point I'm trying to make, Paul, is you have very detailed knowledge based upon your personal experience, based upon your knowledge of the players involved, the IRS agents, the prosecutors, the judges. You know what went on, and because you know it, and because you were poking around, and you were trying to make sure that the ministry's legal position was protected, they had to shut you up, and they came at you with guns pointed towards your head, and dieseled you all over the country, and they've kept you in Santa Rosa County Jail for nearly a year now, and they're going to keep you there for another 6 months.
The Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
I guess my point is, Paul, would you agree that what would you say is when you get out, is it true that you're still not going to shut up? I mean, if their point is to make you shut up, you're still going to be telling the truth, I guess. Any comments about the idea that you've been put in prison because you know what's gone on in the 2006 case, and you're one of the few players that have all the details and know who the players are?
Well, it's not that way anymore. There's 100 people that know it, and they would kill me. I recommend that Kent not get on a small airplane. It's very likely the tail is going to fall off.
Oh man, yeah.
This is huge. We are going to show that the IRS, the prosecutor, the judge conspired together. They actually conspired together and framed Kent. His own attorney conspired together.
Wow.
I don't think we have any chance of losing that case in a court.
Yeah.
Jury's going to hear all the evidence, and they're going to go, "Mr. IRS agent, how can you put a man in jail that had..."
You have 60 seconds remaining.
How can you put Kent Hovind in jail for 10 years that had no legal duty to do anything for the United States government in relationship to that church ministry? No legal duty at all.
Yeah.
Can I call you back?
Yes, sir. Please call me back. And but while we have this few seconds, I did reach out to Alan Stewart Ritchie, who is Kent's attorney, in 2006 multiple times. And I find it incredibly interesting that he was incredibly, if not impossible, to get a hold of regarding the Kent Hovind case. But if you call me back, I would like to continue this conversation for one more 15 minutes, please.
Yeah, I found him completely incompetent when I talked to him. I'll call you back.
Okay, all right, Paul.
650-4249. To hear the cost of this call, press 8 now. To accept this call is subject to monitoring and recording. Do not use three-way or call waiting features during this call. Thank you for using Global Tel-Link.
Yeah, as I was saying that I did talk to Alan Ritchie, and I asked him, why didn't you ask the IRS agent if he had law that required Kent to collect taxes from the church workers? He said, well, the Irish government didn't have a case, so we didn't need to do anything. So he did not defend Kent in any way at all.
He was paid $150,000, if I remember correctly. Kent Hovind told me that he was paid $150,000, and when his time came to put up a defense, that when the judge barked at him, and like made sure he knew his place, that he just sat down quiet as a church mouse and ultimately said no defense.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. The wonderful thing about this is God knows exactly what Mrs. Rodgers did.
Yep.
I don't think there's no question in my mind that she threatened that lawyer. There's no question in my mind that she threatened my lawyer. I was in the courtroom when she threatened my lawyer when he started asking a couple questions like that.
Right.
She told him. This is what she said to Mr. Klaus. She said, "That better be your question."
Yeah.
Mr. Klaus just got quiet and he sat down. That was hurt due to him. Your job, your life is on the line here. Your life, your relationship with the United States county defender, as a county public defender, is at stake here.
Yeah.
I have the power to destroy you in this relationship to this job. That's what she was saying.
Yeah.
The power to destroy you.
Yeah.
All he wanted to do is ask a couple questions that I had written down that were crucial.
Yeah.
Crucial to my case.
That's insane. I saw that firsthand, Paul, and you're absolutely right. She manipulated that entire courtroom, the entire trial. Let me ask you this. A lot of people were just absolutely shocked that she didn't recuse herself. I mean, she was the judge in the first trial. She's the one who's, referred to Kent Hovind's ministry as the leader organizer of an extensive criminal operation. She said Kent Hovind dishonored the United States Constitution, that he dishonors men and women in the uniform. And 8 people signed an affidavit that claims that she said in his sentencing hearing that his crimes are worse than that of a rapist. And yet she's the judge in the new trial. I mean, isn't it amazing? And what's your thoughts on, do you agree that she should have recused herself and she should not have been the judge in the new trial that happened earlier this year?
Absolutely not. The case law says that there's an inference of prejudice. An inference. What that means is just a hint of it. They're supposed to recuse themselves. There was more than an inference. She knows that we're eventually going to take her to court. We're going to put her in the witness chair. We're going to ask her certain questions about that whole deal. And then we're going to bring in all the witnesses that filled out affidavits of what she said. And we're going to ask her, and we're going to ask the court reporter, why is it not in the record?
Amen.
We're going to get the jury to make a ruling that the court record was falsified. If the court record is found to be intentionally falsified for any reason, the entire case is lacking due process.
Amen.
No audio tape.
If they're caught cheating in one little area, they're not allowed to cheat at all. At all. They're the prosecutors. The law says they can't cheat at all.
Yeah.
Well, they cheated us by not having audio available.
Oh, yeah. If there wasn't audio available, it would have, we pushed the wrong button and erased that one. That's fixed up the file. We'll find it.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, what difference does it make whose question it is? It's your case. It's your life on the line.
I was asking jurisdictional questions. Klaus told me I mean, Klaus told me, he says, I can't answer those questions. They're just not. There's questions I'm not going to ask. And I know why. Because I told Klaus, I said, I've been in court hundreds of times. I've had attorneys lean over and said, if I ask that question, I'll lose my bar license. They'll say, why? They'll tell me why. Because that's going to set the government back about 200 years.
Good.
100 years.
This call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
So
The
Mr.
government does not want to know, the federal government doesn't want anybody to know that their jurisdiction is greatly limited to specific acts, to specific people, at specific locations.
Yeah. No.
Every time the government military gets smaller and smaller, their jurisdiction gets smaller and smaller. And it doesn't get bigger and bigger like we experience. It's smaller and smaller. It's absolutely backwards of what it's supposed to be. Federal government shouldn't even, we shouldn't have to bump into the federal government in our entire life. 70 years ago, people didn't even know what the federal government was hardly. Never seen them, never heard from them, never talked to them, didn't do nothing to them, nothing with them. And now you see their vehicles all over the place, their buildings. It's they just turned into a Frankenstein, and they're destroying our country.
Amen to that. Amen to that.
If you go back and study old case law, these federal courts are absolutely backwards from 1800 case laws, the year of 1800s.
Yeah.
Just backwards.
Yeah.
How did the law change? How did the Ten Commandments change?
Yeah, right. Amen.
The courts have changed.
Amen, amen, amen. Hey, let me ask you another question, Paul. And Kent Hovind has mentioned that, I think I mentioned this earlier, but there's been several presidential candidates that have reached out to him and are asking about his case, and he's, actually talked to them, not the presidential candidates, but, I'm not sure, but I suspect the representatives. My question to you is, do you, given that it's an election year and, these guys running for president and they want to I guess put issues in front of the public about prison reform, judicial corruption, misapplication of invalid IRS laws like structuring to regular law-abiding citizens. My question to you is, what would you say to these presidential candidates if you had a chance to talk to them about this case? Not only that, but do you have a lot of hope that they will indeed pick this issue up and run with it? Do you think that something good could happen out of these conversations that we hear that are occurring with Kent Hovind?
I don't think there's a lot of hope in that. There possibly is. The hope that I believe everybody should be taught to build on is the community court. The community court. The 10 amendments in the Constitution, the 7th Amendment, talks about a common law court. That's a court we can convene anytime we want, any place we want, as long as we follow due process. The United States is supposed to join it to make it easier for us, but they don't have to. That is the court that I believe that I think the government is too big to control.
Yeah.
You have to control it at the local level. The local level, get off my porch, or I'm going to sue you in a common law court. Get off my porch. It's just that simple.
Right. No, I absolutely agree. The federal government has grown way too big, and they're way out of control. And not only that, but they seem to have gone in conjunction with, or in cahoots with this prison industrial complex, and they're just filling up our prisons. It's like it's all for profit, and it's like they can't have an empty prison after they spend all that money building it, so they've got to fill it up some way, and so they end up misapplying structuring laws to Baptist preachers and dairy farmers and people running mom and shop grocery stores, and it's just absolutely insane what's going on. I guess your strategy though, Paul, is to just continue to tell the truth, and how do you see this battle playing out? They are huge. They do seem to have the military. They got all the guns. They seem to have the majority of the country bamboozled, or at least it appears that way. What do you see, like, just educating the people as until the day you die? What do you see as the strategy in this war?
Well, You'd be surprised how many U.S. Marshals and sheriffs are willing to listen to good sound. See, these U.S. Marshals and these sheriffs, they're sitting in these courtrooms. They witness firsthand the sham. They witness it. They can't say much because they'll get attacked. But if we can bring a community court together, we could set it right up on the front yard of the federal courthouse if we want. We can have all the media there. We can have CNN there. Anybody we want. We can have our own cameras, and we can have court. We can have the court. We can do it the way we're supposed to, as long as it's a fair trial.
Yep.
And once these U.S. Marshals watch this, they go, "Oh my goodness, these guys are scumbags." Some of these guys.
Yeah, you mean in the federal government? Yeah, that runs the judicial system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Snyder is one of the worst Americans.
Amen to that. Amen.
He's throwing people in jail for 10 years, godly people in jail for 10 years.
Yep. To advance his career.
To advance his career, he probably got 40%. He probably gets 40% of what he collects from Kent Hovind.
Yeah.
40% tax free.
Yep. And
wealthy.
You're absolutely right. And I remember Kent saying that when they made Joe Hovind open that safe and they pulled out the money, he made a tax bill that matched the money that they pulled out to the penny. And that along with what's going on.
County Sheriff's Office.
That along with John David Roy Atchison is absolutely atrocious. It just shows you the circle of the types of people that are involved in this nefarious underbelly of attacking honest American citizens. You mentioned U.S. Marshals.
And the reason, the reason is they know they've got the judge covering for them. The judge will cover for them.
Yeah.
The IRS is tremendously powerful, probably the most powerful entity in the world.
Yeah.
That combined with the Federal Reserve. Now the IRS collects money for the Federal Reserve, so they're the same thing.
They're like the mafia arm of the Federal Reserve. Yeah.
Most powerful. Yeah, they're the most powerful entity in probably the entire world. They probably have more power than the U.S. military.
Yeah. The fact that
worldwide.
Yep. The fact that IRS agent Scott Schneider got to sit at the prosecution table with Tiffany Hope Eggers and J. Ryan Love was absolute just a travesty of justice. He should not have been able to sit there. It's just insane.
But they do that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, But as far as the U.S. Marshals, Carl Lentz, he works with U.S. Marshals extensively, and they're excited. Some of these high-up military people, they're excited about this. They know that our country's turned around tremendously in the last 30, 50 years.
Well, Paul,
it's exponentially going downhill.
Yep. And I've heard discussions about this U.S. Marshals and that they are our hope because they're the highest law enforcement official, in the county. And my question, I guess, to you is: Do you really think there's enough constitutional U.S. Marshals in our country that could turn this thing around? Because
you mean sheriffs?
Well, tell us whether we should be talking about U.S. Marshals or U.S. sheriffs, and what's the difference?
Elected. They have to be elected.
Marshals and sheriffs. Marshals and sheriffs are executioners. They execute the orders. So, the highest power in the community is the individual people. They're the ones that tell the sheriffs what to do.
Yeah.
Community court. That's the highest power. And thank God it is, because that's the courts that can force the truth to be aired to the entire world.
Yeah. Well, can you elaborate on the community court a little bit more? I mean, are there community courts going on today, and is there examples of them going on today, or is it something?
In America, wherever you have a fair trial set up by the people, it's a community court.
Yeah.
As long as it's a fair biblical trial, it's a community court. And those community court judgments, all state statutes, all federal statutes, there's a place in there that says they have to honor any judgment that follows due process.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
So those community courts can be set up. If you study history, the people make the ruling. They march it into any U.S. court they want. They say, we wish for you to honor our judgment. And
Yep.
We'll honor it. if it has evidence of due process.
Amen.
Film the whole thing.
Wait.
Did it not have due process?
Yep, and you know, I think what you're describing was exactly what happened in the Pastor James David Manning trial when they found Obama put out a forged birth certificate. But I need to tell you more about that when you get out of prison, Paul. But I think we're running out of time, Paul, and maybe we can pick this up at a point later when the homeway system is working.
Okay, I'll let you go then.
Okay, God bless you, Paul. Thank you for your time tonight.
Bye, Paul Hansen.
All right, that was Paul Hansen on August the 27th. We tried to do a home wave tonight, but I couldn't hear him, and I don't know what's going on with that. Not only that, but my computer, the sound icon has disappeared, so I can't even control the sound on my computer. All kinds of things going on weird, but I do pray for Paul. I can't even imagine being in prison for 18 months for mailing a letter. I mean, he has a much better spirit about it than I ever would. I mean, if you guys want an example, we'll take the example of Paul Hansen, because I wouldn't be a good example. If they put me in prison for 18 months, I would not have that kind of spirit that he's exemplifying right now. I would be a very angry, I would be a very, very angry man if they did that to me. But anyway, we'll try to pick them up later and continue this conversation later on.